Raise your hand if your budget has been cut in 2009 or will be cut in 2010. Okay, I'm in the right room. I'm in the right room. So why does buzz matter? Why does buzz matter? Two reasons. Revenue is one of them. Here's a chart of Apple computer versus Commodore computer. We go back to the late 1980s or early 1980s, and this is revenue graphed, and you can see that Apple and Commodore were pretty much neck and neck in revenue. And then 1984 happened. Apple created the famous or infamous commercial on the Super Bowl, which later made the Super Bowl essentially the beauty pageant of advertising and marketing in the United States. And bam! One company gets buzz, takes off with revenue, and one company does not. Buzz matters because of revenue. It also matters because you can do more with less. So, I like to define buzz marketing in context of the traditional world. Traditional world, you've got a brand in the middle, a company in the middle, and that brand or company spends money to send messages out to people. And sometimes it ends right about there. GRP is delivered, direct mail piece is delivered, done. And the buzz marketing model is somewhat similar. They've got a brand in the middle, a company in the middle, and that brand or company spends money to send messages out to people. But the entire goal of buzz marketing is to get those two people to tell two friends, and those two people to tell two friends, and so on, and so on, and so on. That's the entire goal. I define it as capturing the attention of consumers and the media to the point where talking about your brand becomes entertaining, it becomes fascinating, it becomes newsworthy. It's really about starting conversations. I'll give you another example. A client I worked with in the past was a Belgian-based company, Reckitt Benckiser. And Reckitt Benckiser had a brand named Lysol. It's kind of like Mr. Muscle here, I think. You know Mr. Muscle? Yeah, okay. So they've got this brand Lysol, and there happens to be this magazine in the U.S. called Good Housekeeping Magazine. So I was talking to about 15 or 20 people at Reckitt Benckiser in a conference room, and I asked them, I said, you've got this brand Lysol, right? Yeah. And I said, I bet that you advertise Lysol in Good Housekeeping Magazine. So how'd you know that? Just a guess. Just a guess. And I asked them, has anyone ever come up to you and said, oh my gosh! I saw your ad in Good Housekeeping Magazine. They said, dude, no one ever comes up to us and says that. Really? No. Now, around the same time, they were advertising Lysol in the kind of the rest areas on the turnpike. So as you're driving up the highway, you know, the M5, whatever it may be, who knows. So you're going up the highway, they have rest area. You can come up, you know, pull over, get coffee, something to eat, restrooms. And as you're walking into the restroom, whether it's men's room or women's room, as you're walking, it says, this restroom is sponsored by Lysol. They use Lysol to clean the restrooms. I asked him then, I said, has anyone ever come up to you and said, hey, I saw that Lysol was sponsoring the restrooms on the turnpike there? And they go, yeah, people have come up to me. You know, friends, family members. I said, that is buzz marketing. So, we like that traditional model, but how's that traditional model working? How's it working? Not so well. Let's look at statistics. Trust in advertising is down. How far down? This far. So the stats are, in the past 3 years, trust in consumer advertising, and we've seen this before today, trust in consumer advertising has plummeted 41%. We can thank our friends at Enron, we can thank our friends at MCI, we can thank our friends like them for betraying the trust of us as consumers. Not only do they lie to us as consumers, they lie to the government. Sometimes they lay our friends off, our neighbors off. And trust in consumer advertising, as well as corporate America, is down tremendously. Now, raise your hand if you have either a DVR or what I'm told is called a skybox here. Yeah. Whoa. Now, you know something very, very different. You know that you have the power in your hands to fast forward. The stats are 92% of those who have a skybox or a DVR are fast forwarding through the commercials. And that is a big, massive wake-up call to folks like Johnson & Johnson, Coca-Cola, anyone who's advertising on TV. All of a sudden the stats are, oh my gosh, she doesn't want to watch our TV commercials anymore. She thinks her time is more important than our TV commercials. And this is a massive wake-up call. It's getting harder, not easier. Now, the stats on the buzz marketing side are a little bit different. The stats on the buzz marketing side are, according to Euro RSCG, I think it's the 5th or 6th largest advertising conglomerate in the world, did a study, and they found on average, word of mouth is 10 times more effective than traditional advertising. 10 times more effective than traditional advertising. It doesn't end there. We'll go way back in time to David Ogilvy, and his research was such that, on average, people pay attention to the content in TV programs and the content in publications 6 times more often than the average ad in those same programs or those same publications. Content 6 times more effective. Now, let's dial it forward to today, to the era of Google. Jupiter Research did a study. And if you're using Google or any search engine, on average, they found that people are clicking on the organic links, the natural links, 6 times more than the sponsored links. Now, the sponsored links has made Google a $140 billion company, so they'll take that all day long. But still, content is 6 times more powerful than advertising. Content. So, the traditional model essentially is a one-way monologue. Essentially, we're being screamed at by advertisers. Most advertisers. One-way monologue. The buzz marketing model is really a two-way dialogue. It's about creating discussions, and discussions are none other than content. And that content will reside online. That content, in terms of discussions, takes place in coffee houses. But it's the smart brand that enables that content, enables the discussion. So, discussions are quiz. We have lots of quizzes today. Content. Discussions are content. We'll go back to that. So, this is the new normal. 24% of us believe advertising. My data may be old because of the socialnomics data is 14%. But 24%, according to Yankelovich and Roper Starch, say they believe advertising. And someone told me that half of those people were lying. 70% of us believe opinions of people that we don't even know. Opinions of people that are leaving posts online. It's scary. This is the new normal. It has flipped the advertising marketing world upside down. And in today's changing marketing environment, it is really consumers, you, that are making the difference. I was on a panel with the business editor of the New York Times several years back, and I said, "You're in big trouble." And he looked at me and he said, "Mark, I'm the business editor of the New York Times. I'm not really in big trouble." I said, No, you are. And this is before their 9-year kind of stock plunge. And I said, go back 5 years ago. It was the mass media, the New York Times, ABC, RTE, all those guys. They were creating 95% of the content. But today, you are creating 95% of the content. Citizen journalists. Serious, funny, ridiculous. Regardless of what it is, 95% of the content is created now by you versus the New York Times. And it is smart brands that create those discussions and enable the buzz. So, on paper, This looks wonderful. Show this to a CEO. Isn't that stereotypical? Big fat CEO. Maybe you should listen to Sylvia's presentation. Says, do more of that. I like that. Let's do that. It doesn't work unless you know how to do it. So let's talk about that. It only works when you, the marketer, give. Give, give, give. And in corporate hallways, in business schools, we don't hear that word enough. We hear the word take. We want to steal market share. We want to take market share. The important thing, the absolute element of success in buzz marketing is giving. And what do we give? We give people a great story to tell because we want them talking about our brands. We want them talking about stories which weave in our brands into those stories. So let's just imagine Friday night. You go out in Dublin, you go to this new restaurant, signature chef, just opened up, wonderful price, and then Saturday night, you're at a dinner party, and you're talking about this wonderful restaurant that you just went to. And what happens? People lean in, and they say, what's the name of that restaurant again? What's the name of that restaurant? All of a sudden, you become the center of interest, the center of fascination, the center of news. You become interesting because you have limited information, special information that gives you buzz currency. The other key to success is putting your brand second. Let's say you're with Merrill Lynch and you launched a new no-load Merrill Lynch mutual fund. Well, as a brand manager for Merrill Lynch, you'd obviously want people talking about that new no-load Merrill Lynch mutual fund. Guess what? People don't talk about that. People talk about stories, and the best you can hope for is if they weave your brand into the story. So people don't talk about brands, people talk about stories. So we'll talk about that, and also you got to follow the 6 secrets. And before we get to the 6 secrets, we're going to have a quiz. We like quizzes. There will be multiple quizzes today. So I'm just going to call this quiz slide 86, and I'm going to read off some things in here. And educate, persuade, inform, Paris Hilton, improve, best, brand, and new. I call this quiz slide 86, and I guarantee we will go back to this. So, 6 secrets of buzz marketing. 1, you have to push buttons in order to get people talking. It's an active event. 2, you've got to capture media attention. Although the New York Times is in trouble, New York Times is still important, and they can amplify your message. We'll talk about that. 3, you've got to advertise for attention. Most people are advertising to fit in. You've got to advertise to stand out. 4, you've got to climb Buzz Everest. 5, you've got to demand creativity. And 6, you got to police your product, because a bad product or bad service will not change anything. In fact, buzz will accelerate whatever you've got. It accelerates the truth. If you have bad products or bad services, people will talk about that and your sales will go down.